And I just remember being in a performance review in my second year, and they said, "You're doing really well. Just keep doing what you're doing for another 7 years, and then we can talk about a promotion."
Will, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you for having me, Paul. It's really surreal to be here because I've been a massive fan for ages. So, to have listened to this show for 8 years now, to be on it, is totally bizarre. So, yeah, having a bit of a weird moment.
It's funny how many people tell me that they've started listening to this podcast 3 or 4 years ago, and I forget the depth of it. So I started to do podcasts. I think it was around about 2016 when podcasting wasn't what it is today, where everybody today has one or should have one or has built their own following, if you like. But back in 2016, the podcasting was like, wow, Paul's got a podcast, and I forget that's been going on for that long, and it's guys and girls were probably listening to that podcast at 18, 19 who are now 26, 27-year-old adults running their own business and kind of beginning that journey to running a successful business. So it's fantastic when I hear it, and it's a reminder to everybody that success isn't built in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day. There is an empire to build, if you like, but it's one brick at a time, one podcast at a time, one email at a time, one recruitment process at a time, one clinic at a time, one book at a time, whatever it will be. And all of a sudden you look back and you think, gee, we did 650 episodes of a podcast, and hopefully it inspired somebody like you to kick off your career. So tell us, what was the introduction to the podcast then? Well, first of all, tell us where you're from. Just give everybody a little bit of an understanding. I always like to shine a spotlight on Britain and the towns in Britain. Tell us, try and explain to somebody in America where Farnham is.
Okay, so the journey started down south in Portsmouth, which is where I grew up, and actually on an island next to Portsmouth called Hayling Island, which is an island, but it's joined by a bridge, so you can drive on. The joke is always you need your passport to get on, but of course you don't. But then I moved
sounds
up
like
since
Canada.
there.
Is that Canada? Sounds a bit like Canada to America.
It's definitely smaller than Canada. But we moved up about 45 minutes north towards London to a beautiful county called Surrey, which is like leafy and green. It's sort of the type of place where the little villages are exactly what the Americans picture an English village to be like. So if you've ever seen The Holiday, the film with Cameron Diaz, that little village she went to, that's a Surrey village very close to us. So that's what it's like.
So everybody listening to this is thinking, great, but I know what their question is, whether they're in Australia, whether they're in America, Canada, all they're thinking is that near London? And that's all I ever get. All I ever get whenever I tell somebody I'm from Hartlepool, the response is always, is that near London? Oh, well, relative to like the size of the US, I guess Hartlepool to London is 4 hours away. So it's kind of close, right? So how close are you to London?
Well, to them, everything is close to London here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're only about an hour away from, 45 minutes away from London. We can get to central London in 45 minutes on the train. So we're just southwest.
Fantastic. So we're over near, well, for relative purposes, for the rest of the world, I get where you are, but for the rest of the world, you're near London. Yeah. So we've got this clinic near London. Okay. So tell us, what was the journey? How did you get it started?
Oh, so going right back to day one, I mean, it all started really with your podcast, to be honest, Paul. So, I mean, unlike many of the people who listen to your podcast and join the group from there, I found you before I even had a business and before I even wanted to be a business owner. I had no clue when I first was introduced to you that this is the sort of thing I wanted to do. So I started as an NHS physio, and like many NHS physios, I just wanted, I wanted to grow into a great clinician. That was my goal.
Yeah.
I loved physio at uni and was really interested in it. I wanted to be able to help people and to become a great PT, essentially. But in the NHS, like I started to learn in there and got better, and then very quickly hit a ceiling. And I just remember being in a performance review in my second year, and they said, "You're doing really well. Just keep doing what you're doing for another 7 years, and then we can talk about a promotion." And
Ouch.
I remember leaving that office, and I just felt like the walls of that hospital were caving in around me, because I just knew I didn't want to do the same thing for 7 years. That's never been me. And it was probably about a week or two after that, I was scrolling through Facebook, not really, knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And I saw your Facebook ad, and it was basically just a story of a guy in the northeast of England in a pretty economically challenged town who is charging 2 or 3 times the national average for a physio session. And something about the story just kind of resonated with me. I mean, you're a British guy and you're a physio, and you know, you were into sport, and there was just a connection there. And I thought, I just want to find out more about this. Like, this is just interesting to me. And at the bottom of your post, there was a link to a podcast. Didn't even know what a podcast was at that time.
Yeah.
You were the first podcast I listened to. And just from day one, really, I was hooked. I just loved the content. I liked your view on life. And then you were talking about growing your business and how you'd scaled from 1 to 4 locations. And I started to think, that actually sounds like, you know, a great thing to do. That sounds like the sort of thing I might enjoy doing. And I knew that at that time I didn't want to stay in the NHS because, you know, I was already burnt out and it was only a year into my career. So I kept listening. I kept sort of following you and taking notes. And eventually I built up the courage to set up a little business. I went part-time to begin with. So part-time NHS, part-time private, sort of eased in, very risk averse. So didn't want to take like the big jump. I basically felt like, because I'd been following your material for so long, I had your books, I felt like I almost had like a cheap head start. Like I was already well versed with the marketing stuff. It really resonated with me. That stuff I got really quickly. So I understood how to like choose a market, how to build a marketing message, how to narrow down who I wanted to treat and who I didn't want to treat, how to discover, you know, the pain points of these people and what they essentially want, and then how to solve their problem. And really the business grew quite quickly. I would, you know, I'd like to say for the story's sake that it took a while to get going, but really it happened quite quickly, and we built a reputation pretty fast. But it was just me. Like, I was the guy. I was doing all the treatment. My partner Brian, he came and helped me on the front desk around 2020. So essentially, I was just a solo practitioner, and I sort of went into a 2-year period where I was fully booked all the time. I was seeing, you know, 50, 55 patients a week, working 60, 65, 70 hours treating patients, plus starting a YouTube channel and doing all the things, and was on the verge of a bit of a burnout. And I was like, I knew something needed to change. I knew I needed to bring people into the business, but I was terrified to do it. And I stayed that way for a little while. And it wasn't until I came to one of the events in London that really I developed the courage and sort of the know-how to hire and really get serious about growing a team and a business. Because when it's just you, it is a business, but it's not scalable. And I mean, that was a huge push for me. It was so helpful to kind of get my thoughts confirmed. I mean, I came in thinking I needed to hire, and I left saying, I have to hire. I know I need to hire now. You essentially told me that that's what I need to do.
Yeah, it's because we've seen it in the success of how businesses are successful and how people are successful. There's actually nothing mysterious to it. Once you understand it, it's very simple, but it's not easy, right? That's the big thing. It's simple on how to scale and grow a business. It just isn't easy. And a lot of it, I want to take you back to the conversation about the NHS and working in the National Health Service. And what I think I absolutely love, as I close my eyes and I think about what I do now for a living, I see you, I see Nash, I see Steve McLean, I see Gav, I see all of the guys, and like Lindsay and Jimmy and everybody that, like, this community that we've built now over the years. And I could reel off dozens and dozens of names in the UK, and I've got, again, hundreds in the US. I close my eyes and I think about you guys and working with you. There is something different about you, right? That obviously we're kindred spirits, because I think you were one of, if I take you back to that conversation, in 7 years, you'll get a promotion. Something inside of you went, fuck this, I'm better than this, right? There's not a chance I'm putting up with this shit for the next 7 years of my life, right? And not better as in you're a better person. It's that you want better and you want more for yourself. And in that respect, if you like, you want to do more things and you want to go more places, and you're not willing to accept the status quo. But 99 other physios got that same conversation at that point in or around your town, who were told, here's a 2% pay rise, go away, wait 7 years, and then you might get from 30 grand a year to 35 grand a year, right? Or 30 grand a year to 40. And you think, fuck, all my Christmases have come at once. Do you know what I mean? Like, wonderful. That's a life-changing amount of money, right? And I'm not being disrespectful. I'm sure it is a reason, it's definitely going to help your life, but it ain't changing your life, right? And the thing that I'm getting, the reward versus the thing that I have to give up, the two are, they just don't even get close to marrying up, if you like, as to being worth it. What intrigues me and what I love is that you've got that inside of you where you go, enough's enough. I'm out. I'm going to go do something different. I'm going to take a more risky path, a rocky road, a path fraught with strife and risk and worry and doubt and fear and everybody questioning what I'm doing, but I'm going to go do it anyway. And I think that's what makes people like you just so unique and so special. And I think that's the bit that you have to understand as an entrepreneur. That is the difference with you, that you are wired differently in terms of the risk that you take and the stress that you can handle and the doubt and the fear and all of these other things which other people can't. And whenever those moments, which I'm sure do happen to you and they still happen to me, whenever you have those moments, that's actually the bit I call upon. It's like, I am wired differently. I do think differently, and I am able to deal with all of this shit. And that's why people are in the NHS for 30 years and they're miserable as shit, and candidly they have to go on strike to get a 2% pay rise. Like, but they've chose that, and it's a brutal thing to say, but they've chose that way of they've chose that way of living, if you like. And the second thing, you have grasped, before you even started the business, what most people in business for 40 years never understand: the most basic of marketing message to the right person at the right time, who my audience is, what I need to say, that I'm not building a physio clinic for everybody. It's for a specific group of people, whether it's 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds with back pain or with knee pain or whatever it will be. If you grasp that, you can build your business from there. It's the rock solid foundation, if you like, that you have to be able to build your business on. And the last thing I'm going to say, if you look at what you said there in the beginning, you're almost a little bit terrified, right? When you first start, you're terrified to recruit, you're terrified to get going. I think as a business owner, we spend most of our lives terrified to start, terrified what to charge, terrified to hire, terrified to scale, terrified to tell the wife or the husband what we're doing, terrified to tell our parents we're quitting our jobs. We're terrified, but we do it anyway.